the Fantasy Podcast. News, reviews, and interviews from the world of myth and legend. With your host, Oliver McNeil.
Episode 13 of the Fantasy Podcast. Hello, I'm your host, Oliver McNeil. Right, so this is an unexpected bonus episode. I was only going to do 12 this year, but it just so happened I needed to collect some props from the very lovely Mark Cordory over near, on the border of Wales, not actually in Wales. I made a horrendous mistake on the interview. It was near the Forest of Dean. And he'll tell you what was being made there, which is pretty exciting. Anyway, Mark is an incredible chap and very influential in my prop making career. Not that he knew that. I remember seeing his work when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and I saw his monster creations that he used to do for his club, Mythlore. Amazing sort of detail for that time period of the early stages of LARPing, and I took the opportunity to go over there and collect some incredible sort of monster creations and puppets that we're going to be using for Legend Quest, which is going to be on the 21st, 22nd and 23rd of December, where we're playtesting it. Now, I went to Mark and lovely little cottage, and I didn't know what to expect, and he was very, very welcoming, lovely man. I didn't doubt that at all, and I went around the back of his house and found him literally hunched over a workbench, toiling away on some leather, and in his his hut, sort of shed, he had all kinds of amazing props. A really tidy workshop, I have to say, incredibly tidy, with some fantastic little props and big props all around. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this extra bonus one. If you're a LARPer and interested in making props, or if you're just interested in Doctor Who as well, because Mark was actually one of the fabricators on the first of the new series, working with Chris Eckerson and David Tennant, and he was head of fabrication, so that meant he made all little kind of weird props and guns and switches and set dressing TARDISes and that kind of thing, and space suits and things like that. Anyway, he'll tell you more about it than my drivelling on here. So I'll see you at the other end. Just to let you know, there is a category B swear word in there, and maybe a couple of category Ds. I'll let you guess what those categories actually mean. Okay, here's the interview. Hope you enjoy it. See you on the other side for any further business.
Here's our special guest interview.
Oh, I'm here with Mark Cordory, who is he's a prop maker. Do you have event organised as well?
Yes, yeah. I used to run Mythlore, which we kind of closed eventually after the event last year. But yes, I've been running events since about 1984. Fantastic.
Now, the reason I'm sitting now in Mark's workshop, and I've known Mark's work, where it's the first time we've actually met, but I've known his work since a magazine called Games Master, I think it was, a GM, which changed to GM.
Yes.
And he had some of his work, including, I think it was Mythlore, wasn't it? And you had what was that creature you had in there?
There was a harpy in it. If I'm thinking about the same article as you, there was a harpy, a severed head, an orc, a few bits and pieces.
Didn't he have a shambling mound as well or something?
Oh, still got the shambling mound, yeah. He's in the shed. He's 30 years old next year.
The quality at the time was just head and shoulders above anything else, and it partly kind of got me into wanting to make props, which you didn't. I didn't tell you this. That's one reason. But they are. I want to say Doctor Who quality. Well, they are, and you've done work for Doctor Who now as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But they're just incredible. And I saw the other day that you're making props which were sort of live role-playing before live role-playing was really around.
Yeah, apparently so. That was a bit of a surprise for me as well, looking at the stuff and going, bloody hell, I was still making orcs before live role-playing kicked off. But yeah, I've been making since mid to late 70s.
You
So
don't,
I have
you
examples
don't look that
of it
old,
anyway.
Mark.
Yeah, that's not having kids. I'm still being one myself.
Fantastic. Now, how did you get into it initially then? What?
You mean making stuff?
Yeah,
Live role playing? Making stuff, I was doing it. I mean, art was the thing I did at school. It's pretty much, you look at any of my subject books and there was no real work being done on them, but there's a lot of doodling going on. And yeah, I was just one of those kids who loved art, so I was always making stuff. I was making stuff at home, and then kind of Dungeons and Dragons happened. And I went, "Oh, this is quite good," and then that kind of took over for a while in the 70s, and then I went on to do theatre design as a degree.
Where did you go for that?
Nottingham Trent Poly, as it was at the time. It's now a university, but it was only a polytechnic when I was there. And then while I was up in Nottingham, I came across an advert for Treasure Trap and went, "Ooh, that sounds interesting." So I went up to this castle in Cheshire and went, "Cool, this is great, but I really need some proper monsters and stuff." But I mean, everybody was covered in paint back then, so costumes were fairly minimal. But that was kind of my lead-in to thinking, oh, I could make costumes and monsters for this.
I'm just going to explain why everyone was covered in paint for those who don't know about live role play. Okay, when the gaming system for Treasure Trap, when it first started, they used to use paint dye on the swords, so you could tell who was hit and who wasn't. Which obviously didn't last for costume reasons. So that's why that was just done on the hit base.
You had a fight. You stopped the fight. The referee came along with a battle board and looked at all the coloured marks on your body and went, "Okay, you've had 2 hits on that arm and you're all purple on that leg." I mean, it was an attempt to try and do a marking system, and it was the very early stages of live role playing when we've moved along from that. But that's where it started.
Fantastic. And now you're incredibly good at making masks and things. So how did you make them then? Was it all latex and plaster and?
I didn't really get into latex masks until we started Mythlore, which was 85, 86. And that was really my first experimentation with latex. I mean, the internet wasn't around then, so finding materials was a little bit more difficult than typing in going, where can I buy latex from? So eventually we found a little pot of it down my local hobby shop in Gloucester, half a litre, and it got taken back and used very, very sparingly. But that was my first sort of example of playing around with latex, and starting to make, again for Mythlore, starting to make masks because I wanted to make my own monsters, and the stuff that was available from joke shops at the time was all kind of, nothing was really appropriate. I thought, I'm going to make my own orc, and I'm going to make my own zombie, and that's where I started with latex. So that would have been about 1985.
Yeah, but for this, again, if you never made, if you're just wondering about latex, what it actually is, it's like a clear sort of milky consistency. I suppose it's related to PVA and those
it's
Corpodex.
Drained from a tree. Basically.
Yeah, and the way you'd kind of paint up in layers when you're drying it off between layers.
When I first started, yes, because I had so little latex. Now you just fill up a mould and just leave it in there for however long you want to build up a certain thickness of skin. Pour out all the excess and then leave it to dry. Much quicker, rather than painting it in layer by layer. Okay. But back then we only had half a litre. Not enough to fill up a mould for a face.
No, and how I used to make them as well, and I used to make it out of. I used to get a head and then make sort of the plaster over the top, or and then you make a mould relief and then pour it in that. And so similar kind of
Yeah,
things.
you sculpt up a head and
Yeah.
basically plasticine. It's the same sort of material,
Yeah.
only slightly more technical. Sculpt up your mask. Take a plaster cast of that. You scoop out all of your plasticine, so you've got a negative impression of what you've sculpted, and then you pour your latex in that. Has to be plaster because it's the way latex works. It dries from the outside in that case, creating the skin. When, say, built up a thick enough skin, pour out your excess liquid latex and just leave it to dry, and then you just peel your mask out and you've got a latex version of your original sculpt.
Did you used to colour it beforehand?
Yeah, you can do that,
yeah.
That helps.
Yeah.
Give it a base colour because it means less painting afterwards.
It's quite pointy as well. It's got kind of...
ammonia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great in the summer. The flies just love the smell of ammonia in the summer because it smells like wee. So, I think any weapons maker in live role playing or anybody who works in latex will know that feeling of trying to keep the flies out of your workshop because the little buggers want to land on it once they've landed on it and it's wet. It's like, oh no! So yes, it does pong a little bit.
So I've seen some of your artwork as well. Or did you always start with like a concept? And I see some drawings around here now. You're a very traditional sort of theatre designer when it comes to making everything.
It really does depend on what I'm making. Some things will start very much from a drawing. If I'm working with a client. If I'm making something for a client, then what generally will happen is they will come to me and say, I want you to make this. I go, okay, do you have any drawings of what you want? No. So I say, well, okay, go and look online. Pinterest is very useful as a resource for images. And generally what I'll ask is for somebody to go and find some pictures which inspire them and have a general feel of what they're after. I'll get those and then I'll go, okay, well I can work from those. I can get an overall idea of what your starting point, and then I can work on drawings from there. There's a back and forward flow generally of if I'm doing something like the Cthulhu costume I made. There was a lot of back toing and froing between myself and the client until we sort of settled on a design. So yeah, it's you're building up. If it's for me, if I've got the luxury of making something just for me, then quite often I don't have a drawing. I just go, I'm just going to see what happens here. And I mean, I've been doing a fair bit of post-apocalyptic over the past couple of years, which I'm really thoroughly enjoying. And on that, basically my own process will be I'll see some ideas which inspire me from somewhere like Pinterest, go, okay, there's a bit of a mood board, and then I'll just have a big box of bits and I'll just start sticking them together. And it's a very organic process. There's no real design going on there. It's all playing around with the actual physical pieces and putting them together in different ways and going, yeah, that kind of works, or that works better. So, but that's a luxury.
Talk about some of your clients. You've worked for where we are at the moment. We're very near the Forest of Dean, which is. Are we in Wales? Or we're on the border, aren't we?
No, we're in England.
Barely.
No, well, we're the Wye Valley counts as the border, so we're 15 mile from the border, really.
Yeah.
So we are in England.
Excellent. Well, it's absolutely beautiful around here.
It is. It's gorgeous.
Very inspirational, and. I'll just have a look around here, so I can miss what I was talking about there. Okay, right. Your club is it your club, the Mythlore? Was that?
Yeah, this was part of the reason why I decided last year to finally put an end to Mythlore as a name, because it was too much my group.
Yeah.
It had become associated with me because I'd been right there from the start, and I was kind of the only consistent name all the way through. But it got to a point where it's really not fair for everybody to go, oh, it's Mark's Mythlore thing. As well, yeah, but there's so many other people involved. I'm just like one of a team, and the team might change, but all these other people are doing just as much work as me.
Yeah.
And eventually it got to a point where I don't want this I don't want this to be the case anymore. Plus, it puts a hell of a lot of pressure on me, going, Mythlore must be Mark Cordory, and go, oh, really? So I thought, after having had 3 pretty well-received events in the New Lands, the Arabian Nights themed ones that we did, I thought, yeah, this is a good point to leave on a high, to put the name to rest.
Yeah.
So there was part of that was taking the pressure off me, but the other part was, look, I need to do something which doesn't have this really intimate association with my name anymore.
Okay.
So that's where Hive Mind came from, which is the new project that I'm involved with.
Yes.
And I'm just one person within that Hive Mind. And that was really a conscious effort to go, like, okay, I'm stepping back from being like, oh, Mark Cordory. It's like, no, I'm just one person in a much more egalitarian group here. So everybody who contributes to the Hive Mind is equally, is equally deserving of.
What's the Hive Mind? What is it?
Well, the Hive Mind is specifically been named because what we're trying to do is create a much larger production group where people can come and go and drop in and drop out on various different events if it gets that far.
Yeah.
But the Hive Mind is basically a live role-playing project where we want to bring together a lot of like-minded people under one banner to create the best live role-playing events that we possibly can, not constrained by any particular genre. So the one we've got at the moment in the pipeline is a present-day horror. We are trying to say as little about it as possible because we want as many surprises as possible come time in. Now, we've given ourselves over a year lead-in to this. The event is hopefully going to happen around about February, March 2017. So we've got over a year to get all of our ideas. We've pretty much got the story together. We've got the wraparound story, the scenario, the location. We just need to put all these ideas. We've got a massive amount of ideas. I mean, we've been talking about this particular story and idea for most of this year now. So we've got a load of ideas, and we're just trying to fit all those pieces into a logical story and into.
Can you say where it's going to be?
No, it's going to be. I know this is a nightmare trying to advertise the thing. Oh, what's it about? Well, I can't really tell you yet.
Come along, it'll be great.
We're getting to the point where we're hopefully going to be releasing booking forms fairly soon. And we're end of November now. We would hope that the booking forms are going to be out in the next couple of weeks, and that will, once we start channeling players into different areas within the booking process, we can start revealing more about various elements. But we want to try and keep as much of it secret, so there are as many surprises when you actually enter into the game.
Okay.
So it's in a venue down south.
Okay.
It's a nice venue. It suits the scenario that we've got. It's pretty much an all-weather venue in most cases. So you know.
Well, I'll tell you what. If we can't talk about that, let's talk about your previous events, and then people can get an idea of the kind of things that you've done in the past, and then say, oh, that sounds like it's going to be good, which is going to be good anyway. So Mythlore, what was the idea? How did Mythlore start, the original?
Right back at the beginning.
Yeah.
I went to Treasure Trap and went, wow, this is great, I'm going to try and run one of those. So I got a group of mates together, most of who had been playing Dungeons and Dragons with them over the previous few years, so they kind of knew the role-playing scenario, and I went, hey, look, we can do this for real in the Forest of Dean, I'm going to run an adventure. And they went, oh, okay. So my plan was that it was going to be an 8-hour adventure, and we'd go around the Forest of Dean in various locations. It turned out to be a 13-hour adventure. Kind of overran a little bit, but it was my first. I wasn't quite up to figuring out how long these things took. And that was the very first, and then we did a couple more in various other locations, just amongst friends.
Yeah.
And on one of those adventures, the name Mythlore came into being. I have no idea where I got it from. Well, it was mythology and folklore put together, and that was it, really. And that kind of stuck, and then there was at that time, the early 80s, mid-80s, was the Enterprise Allowance Scheme run by Maggie Thatcher, and you each put £1,000 in, and then the government paid you a very, very basic weekly wage. And 3 of us got together and decided we'd try and run adventures every weekend.
Yes.
And we ran it for a year, and it almost killed us, and the other 2 went, I think I'll probably go and get a proper job now, which was very wise of them. And I went, I'm going to try and carry on with a lot of other volunteers who gave up their time for free, as is the way of the hobby. And then just carried on for a few years, and I just went, this is so much hard work, because right back then was very early in the hobby.
Yeah.
You had no internet. So there was no way. That was very, very difficult to get yourself known and to advertise. I look back now and think, how the hell did we do it?
Yeah.
Even getting 2 adventures per day, 2 days a week. Saturday and Sunday, 2 adventures each day. And we did that, and then went, I'm just going to go and get a proper job now. So I moved to Cardiff and started working in TV and theatre and film there for years. But the hobby kind of grew up a bit, and it had its talons in me, and
it is, isn't it? I remember when I started, I was about 14, 15, and I discovered my local club through a flyer that they snuck into Games, I think it's Games Workshop magazine,
right,
in W.H. Smith. They just went in and just shoved it in there, we'll get them somehow, and it worked. You had to be very devious in those days.
Yeah, you really did.
Now it's a little bit easier with Facebook and things like that.
Oh, and I think we had GM magazine, as you mentioned at the beginning. GM
That's
magazine
how I found out about your
much
club.
The only publication out there doing it. Otherwise, you'd have to go to things like Games Days, which were hosted by Games Workshop, and go and get a stall there. And it was word of mouth. Yeah. Now, you've got Facebook. Hey, look, we're running an event. Loads of people.
And there are so many clubs, aren't there?
There are.
So yours ran for obviously it had a break, and then
it had a long break. It ran for probably 3 years in the 80s, and I sort of wound it up at the end of the 80s and moved to Cardiff, 1990, I think it was. And then got back into the hobby in general, but wasn't really running anything. I ran 2 horror events, one modern day and one 1920s, but those were just completely off my own back. And then some sort of anniversary cropped up with Mythlore, and it's like, it's 25 years since we did this. So I had a couple of friends who run Burnt Is Clean, which is a pirating event, and really tongue-in-cheek, very low rules, just fun. And they said, okay, we'll run an anniversary one for you. So we got a load of people back who had been involved, and then we ran. It ended up as 3 different events over the course of a couple of years, which kind of wrapped up the Mythlore story there. And then something happened.
Oh, that wasn't the one from last year.
No. That wrapped up what was your kind of classic European setting, Albion setting. And I went, do you know, that Arabian Nights, that would be really good, wouldn't it? And then foolishly I went, okay, let's run one. And Martin Jones, who was a godsend. He had so many connections with so many different live role-playing groups in the UK. Said, I can get some bits and pieces together. I'll help you do this and do that. So, I mean, he was an absolute godsend, and together with lots of other people, we put together the first New Lands event, which was down at Candleston, which has got sand.
Yes, I've been down there. It's lovely, and a castle as well.
Oh, it has a castle, but it was mostly sand. Sand was the big thing. It was meant to be in the Middle East. You're going to have sand, really.
And if you haven't been down, it's it's not just sand; it's dunes. It actually has huge amounts of dunes.
Apparently, the largest in Europe.
Yeah. Wow.
Apparently.
Really? Gosh.
That's what I've heard. I'm not
Probably not a long list, but
no, probably not.
But no, it's an amazing place. So that ideal for that. So what happened on those adventures?
Oh, that was still in the myth-lore world, but a completely new part of the world. This was the mystical East, and they were what I like to call, I don't know whether I've coined a new term, but glamorous LARPing, like glamping. But because of the scenario, because it was all exotic and rich colours and golds and reds and all of that, we just wanted to create something which was really rich and sumptuous. Yeah. Rather than muddy and grey and gritty and roughing it and all that, which is kind of covered by a lot of other groups.
Yeah, mud is a word that comes up a lot.
Mud, yeah. Mud, lots of mud and brown. But no, the idea was really to try and recreate some of the luxury and richness and exotic qualities of all those Arabian Nights tales, and I would think we did pretty well, really, from ground zero, really. But because one of the big problems we had was not many people had those sort of costumes. Yeah, I mean, Empire hadn't really kicked off at that point, so you didn't have all the brass coast being able to be fed into people's costuming. So we really hit the ground, running from the start.
Yeah.
And the first one was good, it was well received. The second one, other people took over running the second one, gave me a bit of a break. And they did a fantastic job, and we kind of got to the point of, well, this really needs to be a trilogy now, doesn't it? We've got to wrap this story up. So the Sultan of the Sea had been murdered on the first one, his daughter had gone off and gone a bit mad on the second one, and we kind of had to wrap the whole thing up on the third one, and that one was remarkably well received as well. And I think we'd built up to the third one, because each event had meant you'd managed to get more stock, more monsters, more costumes, more props. So by the time we had the third one, we knew what we were doing pretty much. It almost killed us. We had a very small production team for what we were trying to do, and it did almost kill the production team.
What monster outfits do you make for that?
We had to virtually make everything from scratch. I mean, we had the Jinn and all sorts of exotic. Is
Jinn the six-armed?
No. That was the Bronze Titan. The Jinn genies.
Ah, right.
Sort of flowing hairs and stuff. But no, the Bronze Titan was kind of the pièce de résistance, because you want to have a big reveal for each event. I want to make an event which makes people go, whoa! And have those moments of people go, whoa, woof! Yeah. This is something I've never seen before. Those real moments of awe. Those jaw-dropping moments where you go, this is something special. Yeah. And those take a hell of a lot of work to do. Not least because the hobby has improved so much over those past 30 years. The bar is being set higher and higher as your base level. Yeah. So if you want to do something which stands above that, you've got to work so much harder to do it. And that was part of the reason I think that we decided that after the third New Lands event, we'd just go, look, we're in an arms race with ourselves here and we can't win. We're just trying to raise our own bar higher and higher and higher, and we don't get paid for this.
No. This is the thing. I mean, it looked amazing. It looked TV production quality. When I've seen some of the photographs and look them up. I'll try and put some links on this episode to see them. They're incredible. I mean, you had beautiful tent all done up with swathes and candles, and the brass statue, like a Doctor Who monster. It's amazing. Because the question I forgot asking was people you've worked for, some of your previous clients. You have worked for BBC on the Doctor Who
I've
episode.
I ran department, the props fabrication department for 2.5 years on Doctor Who. So I came in pretty much right at the beginning of Christopher Eccleston, and stayed till about halfway through the season 2 of David Tennant. And I was running department there, so making stuff for Doctor Who, which my childhood self would have been so pleased with, because I was a big Doctor Who fan.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, it was when Doctor Who was announced that it was coming back and that it was going to be made in Cardiff, where I was living, I thought, there's no way this is going to happen without me. So I just really went, no, this is not going to happen without me. I'm going to be involved somehow. So I just pestered people and found the right people. And luckily, some of the people I'd already worked with previously on other things. So, I muscled my way into the production.
Did you enjoy working there? Was it good fun?
Yeah. I mean, it was the biggest buzz of my career to start working on Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It really was. Yeah. I mean, the buzz wears off, and the ridiculous production times and schedules and pressures start to take their toll. But the initial buzz of, I'm working on Doctor Who, I'm standing in the TARDIS, I've made something which the Doctor's using, and I didn't even get a credit on the first series. I was the entire department, but I didn't get a credit, so you won't see me on IMDb for season 1, but I got a credit from the first Christmas special onwards. But I'm just seeing your name go up the screen really fast. Oh, look, that was me.
So what were you making? Did you make the TARDIS?
No. I helped. My first job was helping to set dress the TARDIS console. So I was brought in to help do bits on that. And I was making, or my department was making, which initially was just me. My department was responsible for making all the things you couldn't buy off the shelf: the hand props, the guns, the bits of tech, anything which had to be designed, couldn't be bought off the shelf. That was the responsibility of my department. And also I ended up doing a lot of set dressing as well on the spaceships and stuff, so I'd be dressing consoles or making bits of set from scratch. So I had lots of fun things to make.
Did you have to work from their designs, or did you design stuff as well, or were you just
It was kind of a mixture, especially on the first season, because I think the production was really... There were a lot of people on the production who also hit the ground running. So it was a bit of a kick-ass scramble. So that was absolutely... There was a chain of command within the art department. And there was the design and concept department with beautiful designs. I mean, Matt Savage was the main concept artist there on the first series, and I mean he designed the new Daleks, not the new Daleks, which have kind of shuffled off and probably the Teletubbies. But he designed the ones that look like tanks. Yeah. And he designed a load of stuff there. And his designs would come into my department, and I would look at them going, okay, well, we don't have the facilities or the budget to make that. I'll try and approximate that. And that's how we worked. That I would get these concepts, and I would try to get as close to them with the facilities and the budgets and the time scale we had to get as close to those as possible. Occasionally, some would slip through that there wasn't a design, because there wasn't time to do the design. So in those cases, I would get to just design it myself.
Yeah.
Which is great. No, I enjoy working like that.
Absolutely.
So that was a luxury then.
So you're not doing it now. You're not working for Doctor Who, is it?
No, I haven't worked. I mean, so I finished in the second season of David Tennant. So it's quite a few years ago. I mean, still people go, "Ooh, Doctor Who, Mark Cordory," and go, "Yeah, okay." And I'm quite happy with that, because I'm still proud of the work that I did on it. Yeah. But it was a long time ago, so And I mean, having moved out of Cardiff now and into the Forest of Dean, I'm obviously away from the production houses, so I get very little film work. However, ironically, I have landed slap bang in location central for loads of stuff now. Three minutes up the road, we've got Puzzlewood, Clearwell Caves and Stockwood, all of which have within the past 3 years been used for Snow White and the Huntsman, the second film they did, Doctor Who, Merlin, Atlantis, Star Wars, and they're all these bloody production crews are like 3 minutes up the road from me. I'm going, shit. How do I get on that? Because you've got to be right there at the beginning. There's no point in somebody like me coming along when the film crews are already setting up. All my work's already been done. So I'm sitting there going, oh, look at that. That's Star Wars just up there. So it's a bit ironic that I've moved away from the production hub and found myself as a result in the location.
Do you want to get back into it then, or you?
I would love to have. I'd love to have a bit of a dabble back in it as well. But you've got to be in that production melee right at the beginning, and people have got to remember you. And the TV and film industry have very, very short memory. If you weren't there for the last production, but somebody else was and was doing your job, they won't come back to you, they'll go to the new person. And that's the way, it's just momentum. There's so much momentum behind TV and film production that nobody's really got time to stop and think. It's just, just keep on going. Right, we used them last time, they were good, okay, let's down, and on you go. So
what are you working on at the moment? What do you do?
Most of what I do now is private commissions, although I do a lot of work for a company down near Bournemouth who do massive pieces, stage illusions for pantomime. For the past 5 years I've been making all the big things, which they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm 7 metre tall giant for Newcastle pantomime. There are 3 things that I've made from this year which I can't talk about due to contractual obligations, but they were big, and I'll be able to talk about those next year. But last year we made T-Rex, life-size T-Rex.
Wow.
And that was pretty good. That's pantomime, that classic.
You don't make that in here, do you?
The T-Rex I didn't make in here. However, I have made some remarkably large stuff here. I have a marquee that I can put up for larger pieces. But I've made some really big stuff in what is a comparatively small workspace.
Yes.
You have to be clever. But then everything you make has to be transportable. So it's no point in making something which is huge, which can't fit in the back of a van. So everything has to be, you have to be able to break everything down, which does mean that I can make quite large things in a quite small space. You just have to be clever about it. So they're one of my main clients over the past 5 years. But I do a lot of private commission. I still do a lot of stuff for live role play. It's become, as the market has grown, there's more money out there. I mean, I know that my products are probably the top end of the price range, but then I'm doing something a bit different.
They are amazing, absolutely incredible pieces. And I mean, just going back to live role, because we both love that, and talking about sort of the money side, I think we both run clubs that are for the love of it. You don't make any money through running a live role play club at the moment. I think there's a few that, I don't know if they're not. I think Labyrinth might.
Labyrinth
make
is
money.
Certainly. I mean, they've been running for so long. If they're doing it as a charity, then they're mad. So one can only presume that Labyrinth supports a number of people.
It's a
small number of people.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it does. I think it's Labyrinth is a cave system in Chislehurst, which has been running games probably for about 30 years as well.
It was a direct. A lot of the people involved in Labyrinth, as far as I'm aware, when Treasure Trap, which was run at Peckforton Castle up in Cheshire, when that closed, a number of the key people from Treasure Trap set up Labyrinth, which is down in Chislehurst Caves on the outskirts of London. So they moved to a more of a practical part of the country, so they could.
It's an amazing site.
Oh yes, I've been there, and it is amazing.
It's quite rule heavy. We found, and we were having a chat a little bit earlier about how live role playing has changed over the years. and I think we kind of both agree that it's the ruling system that came out of sort of tabletop,
Yes.
which went directly into live roleplay, and now people are kind of realising that's not the most exciting part of the game.
Well, I think it's a difficult one. There are so many different systems now in the country, and I think it's true that right at the beginning, basically what happened was somebody took Dungeons and Dragons early edition and went, okay, how can we port this over? How can we port these rules over into a live action situation? And that's why we ended up with spell lists and hit points and weapon damage and armor class. All those things came over with Dungeons and Dragons in the original port, and a lot of them have stayed. And a lot of people like the idea of rules that they can study and, work into, really get their teeth into some rules. But they've become quite tenacious ideas within the hobby, and they've been tenacious for a long time. They've stuck of hit points and armor class and weapon damage and all of this. And it's interesting to see that a lot of the newer systems, the brand new systems which have been created, are really going for the rule light, for as few rules as possible, in a complete departure from these very rule heavy systems. And a lot of the well established systems that have been going on for years and years and years, they have much more in the way of rules, numbers, lots of numbers and lists and skills and all of these things, and character progression. Your character gets more powerful the more games you play, and again that's a direct port over from Dungeons and Dragons. But now it's really nice to see that new systems are going, do you know what, we're all grown up now, we kind of don't need, we can just play the game. As long as we don't take the piss, we can play the game. And if everybody makes this mutual agreement, we don't really need all those rules. If you make it look good, and if everybody plays along with you, and nobody's trying to role play, and everybody's trying to role play instead, then actually what ends up is can be far more imaginative, because you're not having to remember all of these rules. And I'm not saying that rule heavy systems are wrong, because a lot of people love them, and that's great. But what's nice about the hobby now is there are so many different approaches to playing live role playing, and not all of them are based on heavy rules. I think the rules tend to come down to the combat, and it's all about that point in the adventure where something's going to break out that you need them. I've never been drawn to combat-oriented systems, so I'm very happy to go along to... I'm getting too old for combat.
Yeah, it hurts. It doesn't really hurt. It's just you're running about a lot. I rather, I like the threat of violence. I like that kind of anticipation that something might leap out at you, but the actual... I don't want to be. But it's an integral part of the hobby. Combat is, a real mainstay of the hobby. But I can't, to be honest, I can't count that fast in the middle of a battle. Going, 3 hits from that. How many was that? How many hits have I got? I know I've got protection. I just can't work. My brain doesn't work that fast. Yeah. So if somebody looks as though, I think the general term now is heroic fighting. Yes.
Yeah. If you make it look good, if somebody's come up to you with a huge two-handed battle axe, and they're obviously meant to be big and powerful, and they really play that blow, if they land that blow on, it's only fair for you to go, alright, I've just taken a hell of a lot of damage from that. That hurts, and I've got to react appropriately. Rather than like, was that just a double? Oh, right, okay, well, I know I've got 15 hits on that, plus I've got my armour class. And it doesn't flow. From my personal point of view, it doesn't flow. It hinders combat rather than makes it a fluid interaction between the two people who are hitting each other. Yeah. And if you make it look good, you should react to that in a proportionate way and make your reactions look as good as theirs.
Yeah.
And that becomes a mutual agreement between you there. And everybody who's watching as well. I mean, if you're middle of a big fight, you haven't got somebody, as we used to call it, drum rolling, going double, 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 as fast and laying as many hits as they can on you as possible. And that just looks rubbish.
Yeah.
But to have big heroic Viking charging up with his battle axe, whoa, taking a massive swing at you, and you go, oh, mate, you look like you're out of a film. All right, you landed a blow, fair blow, I'm going to go down. That becomes, that's an agreement that you've made, and it just works.
Yeah.
And I think the hobby's got to that point where we can do that. We can have systems which do that. On Hive Mind, going back to the system that I'm involved in, that at the moment we're trying to put together our rule system for it, and it's at its current point it is 4 sentences long, and we're already debating, is that too much? It's like, no, this is good. 4 sentences to describe our entire rule system, and one of those is don't take the piss. Which we're still trying to figure out a professional way of saying don't take the piss. But I think it's very difficult to try and find a sentence which sums it up quite as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it sounds like, and we were talking about this earlier, about trying to appeal to the general public. And who are you trying to attract with Hive Mind?
I think possibly we're probably looking at your hardened live role players. What we're attempting to do with this first event is certainly not going to be for the faint-hearted. The players will need to invest in the scenario and the world that we're creating. That you can't go into it going, oh, this is a bit of a laugh, isn't it? Oh, right, look at him. None of that. It's going to be, okay, this is in your face, this is totally immersive, and we want everybody playing the game. So this isn't an entry-level game. This is for your hardened live role players, hopefully.
Yes. It's that sounds absolutely cool. I mean, what's the most immersive game you've played? You've obviously played a lot of different systems. I see you doing it was a 1920s Cthulhu style one.
That was great. I mean, it's difficult to say what's the most immersive game I've played.
What's the best experience you've had? Is there anything that you kind of go, that's just an incredible experience? And it's tricky because you're involved in a lot of them.
Yeah.
So you kind of.
Okay. Well, if I exclude any that I've been involved in running and purely talk from the perspective of being a player, there was a very good game I went on at the end of last month, which was a first-time event called The World Went Dark. That was post-apocalyptic. And we started off, the event started off, we were led out into the woods in the middle of the night to clearing, burning torches, campfire. We were told to put all of our weapons to one side, kneel on the ground and act as if we'd been taken prisoner by slavers, and then it was time in. I thought, this is a really nice, straight in there, just dive straight in. And that was great. That was a really nice start to an event, and that stood out for me. The Vault 57 at the beginning of the year, that's based in the Fallout world, the computer game Fallout, and that's a not-for-profit live role-playing scenario set within that world, and they have a bar there in the evenings, and you've got the music playing from the game, all those classic old songs which are on the game soundtrack, and everybody's in kit, and those moments, a moment like that where you just sit back and nothing's really happening, but lots of little buzzes going on, lots of little conversations. You just sit back and look at that and go, "This is perfect. This is totally immersive." And it doesn't have to be about those moments where you've got some big bugger in a horned helmet shouting at you to. Ah! It doesn't have to be those moments. It can be the quiet moments. And from an organiser's perspective. And I'll go back to like the Mythlore New Lands events. Some of the best moments for me watching it were in our tavern, where we dressed the entire tented tavern, and it was all beautifully low lit, and there were little huddles of people in there. Or you'd go outside the tavern into the souk, which we'd created, but not we as in the organisers, we as in the players and the crew and the organisers all together, all come together and brought these tents and bits of set dressing to create what in the evenings just looked like an Arabian souk, marketplace. And just being able to wander around that and hear these little bits of conversation, all these little moments of action and drama coming on, you just go, yeah, this is really, this nails it for me. It's like you are in a real environment.
Yes.
And those are the immersive moments. That's what I love about this hobby, is those moments where you just go, yeah, this nails it. And it doesn't have to be about 100 orcs charging over the hill towards you,
No.
bearing down upon you. It can be those quiet moments.
I went through a little phase of playing characters and deliberately choosing skills that were purely roleplay and not anything to do with the gaming system, just so I can try and get this. I did one where I was a tarot reader, and I was reading, and then another one I was a. So I went to, I think it was one of Mark Dollar's events, and I was doing some readings for some barbarians in the tavern. I was saying, your shaman is in trouble, and he actually was in trouble outside. They were all rushing out, and they go, "Hands up!" It's like you've just read that, and that's it really happened, and that was all just from role play. And I another one where I was a dream interpreter, so I was going around the gathering interpreting people's dreams, and again, no prior knowledge of what they were having, and just using a little bit of sort of mind reading techniques just to try and draw that out, just kind of create. And we were talking about illusions earlier, about incorporating those into live role playing, and that is as close to real magic and real experiences.
No, absolutely.
as
I
you
mean,
can have.
So I'm fortunate enough to have been working for professional stage illusionists, doing all the large pieces for Panto, but I've certainly picked their brains to try and bring in practical illusions into the events that we've been running. Again, going back to the Mithril New Lands, we had the levitating fakir effect, where it appears that somebody is just sitting there cross-legged in mid-air with a hand gently rested on a walking stick, and they're just levitating there. And we introduced that on the first event, and people were like, "Oh, what?" And just seeing when the players walked into the area, and this young girl was just apparently levitating in mid-air, and just the double take that they did, and went, "Oh yeah, that's great." So we brought her back as the same character on the second event, and put her in a different location, and people started to go, "Yeah, I've seen this before. Yeah, that's still good," and they still enjoyed it. I thought, you know what we need to do on the third event? We need to get rid of that walking stick. So we did. I spoke to the guys at the Twins Effects and said, "Look, I want to do this effect again, but I'd like to do it twice. So we see the traditional effect where she's still got the walking stick. But is there any way that we can do it on the second time this year, that she lifts up the walking stick and lays it across her lap?" And they came up with a way of doing it. And the look, we had all the players were at the encounter. She was doing what she'd done in the previous 3 encounters as the levitating fakir. And I thought, I know what's coming. And I was just looking at the players. My focus wasn't on her, it was on the players. And she just picked up the walking stick, laid it across her lap, and it took a couple of seconds for this ripple of nervous giggle to run through the players as they realised what they'd just seen, because that walking stick had been established as everybody knew that walking stick was somehow holding her up, and then suddenly we took the walking stick away. And I just saw 2 players just look at each other and go, "Poof, mind blown," because it did blow their minds. And obviously it's a practical effect, but being able to bring that sort of stage illusion into an event where you do, just for a moment, you make the players go, "I have no idea what I've just seen. How the hell did they do that?" Those real moments of disbelief, that's special effects, that's magic. And you bring those sort of elements into this hobby, and you can create some you can create some moments which I don't know that you can get any other way.
Okay, this is going to be my last question, but
Okay.
it's hopefully a good one. Okay, I'm going to give you an unlimited budget. Okay,
Thank you very much.
That's my pleasure. I want you to create a scenario or a club or a business which is live role playing. How would you do that if I gave you the money and said, okay, here you go. What do you think you would need to make it kind of hit the mainstream?
Oh God. Permanent site that wasn't weather dependent would be a great start for everybody.
Castle?
Castle would be good, yeah. Some outdoor locations, some underground locations. Provide the costumes for everybody. If you're talking about not just appealing to live role players, then you have to provide all the costumes for them as well. You have to make it as rule light as possible if you're going to attract people. I mean, so many of us in the hobby have had this drunken conversation around a campfire late at night, I'm sure. But if you're trying to appeal to non-live role players, then you have to provide an awful lot for them. But effects, special effects, and you're competing with TV and film and computer games, and this is your base level. This is what I was talking about with live role playing. The base level has risen so much that being able to stick your head above it and get yourself noticed is more and more difficult. And now if you're trying to compete with people who don't do live role playing but do go and watch films, do sit and watch, play computer games or watch TV or any of that, that base level is what they're expecting. So you then, if you're going to go, okay, we're going to draw you physically into this world, which I know is what you're planning, to draw them into that world, you've got to try and recreate the feeling that they've walked onto one of those film sets, that they are interacting with characters from a computer game, that they are, somebody has stepped out of a TV program and they are talking to them now, and they're experiencing special effects like that. And if I had an unlimited budget, I would do everything I could to do that. Yeah.
I think the Harry Potter experience has done pretty well, and that's a similar. There are interactive elements there, but they have the benefit of millions of pounds to spend to build it.
Plus, what they've got is they've got all the Harry Potter films and the books, so people walk into that environment already with all of this world in their head. They've seen it, so that they know what they're looking at, and they've got all these preconceptions. But if you're taking people who haven't got that wealth of background already built up, and then you take them off the street and going, poof, here you go, deal with this. That's far more difficult.
I think the trick it is the world building, which is a challenge for me, because you can't, you come from the village of Fnardy Flar, and you're throwing all these names of locations that you want to set in the real world, and they kind of go, what, who, hey, who's that, what? So you have to make it very simple for them to kind of get hold of, and then you
don't have really complicated names.
No,
because nobody remembers complicated names. Keep them simple,
especially the actors. His name's changed again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Mark, if someone does want to have a commission of a monster or costume, how can they get hold of you? What's the best?
They can go to my website at markcordory.com. That's MarkCordory, all one word. And you'll find lots of examples of my previous work and a link to email me, and I'm always happy to discuss commissions.
Twitter? You're on Twitter as well?
I am on Twitter. I'm really not quite still seeing the point of Twitter, but I'm on there. And I'm on Facebook like a rash. So look for Mark Cordory Creations on Facebook, and I have a work page there. But my website's my preferable route in, but if you want to just go and browse, then my website or Facebook. But I wouldn't bother with Twitter because I still don't see the point.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. Lovely meeting you.
And yourself. Thank you.
And there I left Mark to his very hectic schedule. Now, Mark actually, as he says, takes private commissions, and if you are a live role-playing club or a cosplayer, the quality of his work is just unbelievable. There's a good reason that he was working on Doctor Who, and why he is so well known in certainly the UK live role playing societies. He is truly a LARPing legend. Sorry, Mark, embarrass you there, but you are. Okay, so what's been going on, or what's going to be happening in next year? Now, I've got a few guests I'm trying to line up at the moment. But if you happen to be listening to this and you think that you might have something to offer, are you an author? Are you a filmmaker? We have had some reviews here, and we would love to hear from you if you would like to be featured. So how do you do that? Well, you can get hold of me probably the best place is either Facebook, and you can find us on the Fantasy Pod, or Twitter, which is my preferred means, and we are at the Fantasy Pod. And you can send me a message. I will see it, and I will try and get back to you. Obviously, if your work isn't quite what we're looking for, I can't guarantee what you're going to use it. In fact, we won't. So apologies if you don't. Now, the music, as always, or certainly for this year, has been provided by Jakku. Really clever guy, beautiful work, very, very peaceful, I think. He's got loads of albums and loads of songs. You can find him on SoundCloud. Who would else I have to thank? Well, I have to thank everyone who has agreed for an interview this year, and also all the people who did some funding, or the GoFundMe, either through Kickstarter or through GoFundMe, for my Legend Quest project, which, as I said, is happening and it's all built, and I'm in the middle of writing it. We've got the actors. I'm creating all kinds of fun fantasy props with it, as well as marks. We have lots of other sort of weird masks and costumes that have been provided by some incredibly talented people. Yes, we only use the best. So for next year, good lord, I have no idea what's going to happen with it. Well, you can find out by listening to this podcast. So please rate us, please share it, and tell your friends. And well, that's goodbye for today.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. We want to hear from you. Find and follow us on Twitter at the Fantasy Pod.